Hey guys, happy Monday. Hope you're able to join me live. Awesome. So tonight we are going to be discussing the difference in an independent contractor and an employee. And I'm doing this live tonight simply because I have been asked this question time and time again from different clients that have come into my office or have just reached out to me here on the Facebook group and have asked me, so am I doing this right? Am I paying my employees correctly? Or are they employees at all? So we're going to do this live tonight so that I can tell you the nitty-gritty of the difference between an employee and a subcontractor or an independent contractor. So I do want to remind you that tonight I am streaming through StreamYard. So if you will give me your permission, that would be great so that I can see who is who's live tonight with me. And if you will just wave at me or give me some kind of emoji in the comments below, that would be great so that I know that you're here. And if you're catching this as a replay, if you will please just hashtag replay for me, that would be great as well. So let's see, I'm done looking at my notes here. So just a quick intro in case you are new to the Calculated Profits page, or maybe you're new to the Thriving Entrepreneur Squad. And tonight I'm also going live on my YouTube channel. So in case you're new, my name is Stephanie Manley, and I am a virtual CFO and tax strategist. So what does that mean in a nutshell? Well, that means that I am your tax and accounting guru. I have been in this industry for over 15 years. And if you have any questions about anything finance, I'm your girl. So if you have any questions, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to me and I will be glad to help you. So we're going to dive straight into this topic tonight. And the topic, again, remember, is what is the difference in an employee and a subcontractor? Some of this can be extremely confusing, but the IRS does a really good job of breaking this down for us. And I'm going to go through those rules and regs with you tonight. Also, if you noticed in my promo for the live tonight, I talked about a local company that got into some really big trouble because they were paying their employees as independent contractors. One of those employees got a little upset that they were paying too much tax and actually filed a complaint with the Internal Revenue Service. And this company was fined a large sum of money, and they had to go back and pay payroll taxes for several people that were working for them. So don't get yourself in that situation. Listen to the nitty-gritty that I'm going to give you and do your business correctly. So the major difference between an employee and a subcontractor when it comes to a business owner is the taxes that you're paying for your worker. So as an employee, I know all of you know this, but I'm going to go over it anyway. For an employee, you know, they get paid a gross amount, and then from that gross amount is deducted from that the federal withholding, their state withholding, if they have state withholdings where they live. And then you also have Social Security and Medicare tax. And what's left of that is their net pay. And that's what the paycheck is written for each time they get paid. Now, for an employer side, when they have an employee, they also have to match that Social Security and that Medicare, which is 7.65% of their gross revenue. So when you have employees, it's going to cost the employer a little more money. Okay. Also take into consideration, most companies have to have workers' compensation insurance. They also have to pay unemployment to the federal government and also to their state. So again, employees are going to cost more than an independent contractor. And that's why so many employers opt to go the independent contract route, even though it's not accurate and it's not with the IRS regulations. So as an independent contractor, you are just going to get paid for the job, and then you're responsible for all of your taxes. You're responsible for the federal and the state, and then you're responsible for both shares of the Social Security and the Medicare on your own. So that's the biggest difference. And that's why some companies just say, you know what, forget it. I'm going to make you an independent contractor, and you should not be doing that. So again, we're going to go over those rules and regs tonight. And if you're just joining me, please hashtag replay if you're catching this as a replay, or if you're watching me live tonight, if you'll just post some kind of post there. I'm going to see if anybody's on real quick. Nope, I don't see any comments from where I'm looking at anyway. All right, so how do you know how your workers should be classified? Well, the IRS breaks this down into 3 common rules. And those areas are control areas. So behavioral control, financial control, and the type of relationship. And we're going to break those down. And by answering these questions, this can determine for you whether your worker is an employee or if they're an independent contractor. All right, so breaking down behavioral control. Behavioral control per IRS regs, I'm going to read this straight from their regs, says, does the company control or have the right to control what the worker does and how the worker does his or her job? Okay, in other words, do you tell your employee or worker when they have to be at work, when they can go home, when do they have to take breaks, where their job is going to be located and on what days? Do you tell them what tools that they have to use? Do you give them instructions on how to do a job? And then also, how specific are those instructions? And do you measure detail to the job, or do you just want the job completed? And do you give any training to your worker? All right, so all that in a nutshell. For this rule, if you tell your worker when to be at work, so you give them a work schedule and they are to come in at a certain time and clock out at another time, okay, they would meet the employee rule for behavioral control, okay? However, if you were to just give them a job and you were to hire them, and you would say for a virtual assistant, maybe you hired a virtual assistant, and you say that I want you to do an email campaign for me, and I just need it done by the end of the month. And you give them that job and you pay them for a complete job. That would be more of an independent contractor, because you didn't give them any rules on how to do the job. You didn't tell them how specifically you wanted it done. And you didn't tell them when it had to be done. You hired them for a specific job. Okay? So moving along to financial control. The rule on financial control, verbatim from IRS, says, are the business aspects of the worker's job controlled by the payer? Are the business aspects of the worker's job controlled by the payer? Well, a couple of things with this. Is there a significant investment by the worker? Well, what does that mean? That means, did the worker actually put in an investment up front? Do they buy any tools? Do they have to buy any equipment in order to do the job? And are those tools or equipment able to be used on multiple jobs, or was it purchased for this specific job? Also, on unreimbursed expenses expenses, period. Are you going to reimburse them for things that they purchased, or do they have to actually pay for those out of the money that you're providing for them for the services they're rendering? So those things would be like fuel or software fees. Do they have to pay those expenses, or are you going to reimburse them? Also, do they have an opportunity for a profit or a loss? Okay, so as an employee, when you go to work, you clock in, clock out, and you're going to get paid. There's no way that you're going to lose money doing that. But as an independent contractor, which means simply that you're self-employed, you do run that risk of losing money on that job and showing a loss. You may go into the job and price it too low. Your expenses may be higher than you had expected, so you could lose money on the job. And then also the method of payment goes under this financial control. As an employee, typically they are paid a regular hourly wage or a weekly wage, and taxes should be deducted from that. An independent contractor, however, is usually paid a flat fee for the job. So again, going back to the assistant, that person is paid for the job, not necessarily how many hours that they spend on the job, but the job as a whole. Okay, so financial control, again, if you are reimbursing them for expenses, they could be an employee. If they have a significant investment in the job, then they are likely an independent contractor. If they have opportunity for a profit or loss, again, they are likely an independent contractor. And if you're paying them for the job as a whole, they are usually an independent contractor. But if you're paying them an hourly wage, then you're normally going to be an employee. Okay? And the last thing is type of relationship. And that states, are there written contracts or employee type benefits? And will the relationship continue and the work performed a key aspect of the business? Okay, so this is one that I see a lot. I see a lot of business clients who will say, well, I had them sign a form that states they're responsible for their own taxes. I don't have to worry about it. They're not employees. Okay, well, according to IRS guidelines, that is not sufficient. Okay, they have to meet the rules. It doesn't matter if they signed a piece of paper stating that they are going to pay their own taxes. That's not the reg. So please know, for any of you watching, that if you go by that standard, and you could get into some big trouble doing that. Okay, I want you guys to be in compliance, and that's what I'm here for. So remember, a written contract is not going to get you out of saying that these people are employees. Also, if you offer benefits to your workers, benefit offering is not typical for independent contractors. And if the relationship is going to go beyond a specific job, so you hire them as a general person, not specifically for jobs themselves, that person is typically not an independent contractor. They are an employee of the company. Okay, so I want you to look at the whole picture. You can't just say, well, yes, I pay them their reimbursed expenses, so they're an employee, or they bought tools, so they're definitely an independent contractor. You have to look at it as a whole and kind of really ask the questions and document. I say a lot in my firm, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. So remember that if you're ever questioned by the IRS or the Department of Labor for that matter, you need documentation to determine how you came up with whether they were an independent contractor or whether they were an employee, and that matters. So document, document, document. And if you're still unclear whether or not someone is an independent contractor or they are an employee, the IRS provides a form, and it's an SS8, SS8. And you can actually go through that form. I printed it. It's about 3 pages long. And I highly recommend that you just sit down and actually answer those questions yourself for people that you're not sure about. It's not going to give you an answer on the form. You actually have to send it into the IRS, and they'll return it to you, telling you whether they classify this person as an employee or an independent contractor. And if you really need to do that, go ahead. But I recommend that you use the form and really look at the questions that they ask. And by looking at those questions and knowing what the 3 control rules are, you'll be able to determine whether your worker is an employee or an independent contractor. So once you determine whether they're an employee or an independent contractor, what do you do next? So the first thing is, if you have determined that your worker is an employee, you need to put them on payroll. Okay. I highly recommend a payroll third-party company, Gusto, Gusto. And I have an affiliate link that will actually save you some money if you would like to sign up with Gusto for payroll. But they actually offer benefit services for your employees and take care of all your payroll taxes and things for you. And then if you have a worker who you have determined is an independent contractor, you will need to get them to fill out a Form W-9. And that form will give you the information that you need to complete a 1099 at the end of the year, and a few updates on the 1099 for tax year 2020. We have a new form this year. It's called the 1099 NEC, and that is going to be for all workers who you have paid as independent contractors, and you have paid them $600 or more during the tax year of 2020. So a new form, no longer the 1099 miscellaneous that we've used for many, many, many years. You're actually going to complete the 1099 NEC now. And that one is due every year by January 31st. It wasn't until a few years ago that the IRS did not really give any specifics on penalties, but the penalties now for not completing these 1099s are up to $50 per 1099 all the way up to $280. So 50 up to 280, and that's on a tier range depending on how much income that you have and how many 1099s that you missed. So get those 1099s completed and have them completed by January the 31st. All right. Also, some of you may be questioning now whether or not you have been incorrectly classifying your workers. So maybe you have been paying your workers as independent contractors, and then after listening to me tonight and actually knowing what their ground rules are by the IRS, you have determined that you are not paying your workers as you should. Well, the IRS does have a voluntary classification settlement program that I recommend that you use if you have determined that you have been paying your workers as independent contractors instead of employees. And what this will do is it will save you on penalties and interest. It actually will save you from major audit issues and different things with them. So I really recommend, if you have determined that you go ahead and complete the steps in order to go ahead and do that voluntary program. And that's a Form 8952 if you'd like to do that. Also, if you are watching and maybe you are a worker that you feel has been misclassified and you feel that you should be classified as an employee and not an independent contractor, you can complete the SS8 form as well. And what that will do is it will help the IRS to determine whether or not your employer is classifying your status correctly. So you can do that as well. All right. So that was a lot of information. I know it was. And I know you can go back and rewind and play again, and that will be fine. But just really know the major takeaway from this is you do not get to decide the classification of your worker. The IRS has already done that for you. They've already set the steps. They've already set the standards so that you just have to follow the guidelines. So many, like I've said before, believe that they get to set that standard. As long as the worker signed the piece of paper stating that they are responsible for their own taxes, then they're covered. But that is not true. So make sure that you're classifying your workers correctly. All right, any questions? I'm going to open this up. See if I have any questions anywhere. Let's see. Nope. Okay, no questions. If you have some after you watch, if you just feel free to message me. That will be just fine as well. All right. So we are down to the last couple of weeks of December, last couple of weeks of 2020. And some of you are like super excited, so ready for 2020 to be over with. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not really sure. Not sure 2021 is going to be much different, but we'll see. So my question for you tonight as we end this is, are your books in order? I stress it all the time. You need to know your numbers, know your numbers. So I'm asking you tonight, are your books in order? Take a gut check and ask yourself, are you ready to file your taxes? Because it's here. And if you're not ready to file your taxes, I have a couple of things that can help you get there. And I want you to know your numbers so that you can know whether you're making a profit or if you're losing money. And if you're losing money, we need to make some changes. So I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. Awesome. So I have a couple of things for you. The first one is my free calculated tax planner, and many of you have already downloaded and you're already using it. I'm hearing lots of feedback from you guys that has helped you tremendously in your business. So if you haven't downloaded, go ahead and use the link there and download that. That's this link right here. And then some of you too that have downloaded have reached out to me and said, it's a great product, but I don't have time to do my books. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have time to do things in my business either. And so I hire it out to someone else who that's their specialty and that's what they do. So if you want to discuss a more done for me service, I'll be glad to talk to you about those things as well. And you can use that link there and fill out a little form and we can set up a discovery call to actually talk about your business. And so I can get to know you more. So that would be great. At the end of the day, I just want you guys to know your numbers, be ready for tax time, and have it done early enough that you can benefit from the tax planning strategies that I've talked about in my other live sessions as well. So without any more questions, I am going to wrap it up for the night. And next week is Christmas, so if I do not see you next week in a live, I know we have lots of Christmas festivities going on at our home with our family. So if I do not see you next week, have a Merry, Merry Christmas, and I will see you the following week. Have a good night.